DeShuna Spencer. I am the founder and CEO of kweliTV. This is our Meet the Filmmaker series. Twice a month, we interview really awesome filmmakers who are on kweliTV's platform. We have independent films, documentaries, web shows, and news programming for the entire African diaspora. And I'm really excited to have Eulonda Lea on the show with me this time. She has a really awesome short film called Ode to Rosa. It's a comedy. It's very funny. Anyone who is used to catching a bus on a regular basis would totally get the humor in the short film. Eulonda, welcome to Meet the Filmmaker series.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so well, thanks first of all for just being on the platform. You were one of the first filmmakers to agree to take on kweliTV and be a part of our revolution. So I'm always really excited to actually get a chance to talk to the filmmakers one-on-one, besides having an initial conversation about being on the platform. But talk a little about first, what is the movie about? It's a spoiler alert for those who have not seen it.
Well, basically, Ode to Rosa started out with me just sort of chronicling lots of little things that happened during my commute to work on the bus. At the time, I was riding this particular bus route that crosses through the midsection of DC from one quadrant to the other, and this particular route is sort of notorious in Washington D.C. in terms of some of the crazy things that happen on the bus. And one particular day, I was having sort of it was an interesting ride, let's just say that. And I got to thinking, it occurred to me that what Rosa Parks would have thought had she saw everything that was going on the bus, take into consideration the sacrifices that were made during the civil rights movement, in particular with the integration of the bus. And so that was sort of the genesis of the film itself, that whole idea. And then I got to looking at the bus itself and how there was the demographics and the various individuals on the bus, and how everyone was sort of together, all sort of socioeconomic levels, blue collar, white collar, educated, not as educated, whatnot. And so I looked at it as though the bus, or looking at the bus, as sort of a microcosm of society in terms of the integration of within the bus. And so I wanted to sort of tell this story looking at the bus as a microcosm and sort of comparing it to how far we've come with respect to integration, but yet how far apart we remain when it comes to common courtesy in public and respecting the ride, if you will. And but I wanted to also tell it in sort of a comedic way, so to sort of make it a little bit more palatable, not so preachy, if you will. So that was kind of how the story started when I wrote the script. But honestly, when I wrote the script, it was more or less a writing exercise, and I didn't really think that I was going to make the short. I guess I wasn't real, sort of bought into the idea of making the film until a couple of people read the script and thought that it was pretty funny, and particularly my producer, one of the producers on the film, she said, "Yeah, let's make this." And okay, so that's sort of how it came about.
Wow, that's really interesting, because I catch the bus not as much as I used to. Now I do mostly take the metro, but the bus is just a whole different animal. You're absolutely right. There's so many different people that you meet, all different economic backgrounds, and it's very different. I feel like in DC in particular, you really get that dynamic versus, I'm originally from Memphis, and Memphis typically is only one particular economic background that takes the bus, and typically they're Black. Unlike DC, where someone can have a Rolls Royce, literally, or a Beamer. They don't want to drive through the mess of DC traffic, so they'll catch the bus. So you see all types of people catch the bus, and you do see a different dynamic of how society really is. And so I think it was a really, really interesting way on how you really took, one instance on a bus. And when I used to catch a bus, I would also too wonder, what were Rosa Parks and what are ancestors think of the bus now? Because people are very rude, or I see young Black people sitting on the back of the bus. I'm like, wait a minute, folks were beating holes down so you can see anywhere, and then you want to sit on the back of the bus. So I think it
Right.
was a really good thing to tackle. Another thing you mentioned too was it was something that you weren't sure would be an actual movie or actual short. So why did you end up doing this exercise in the first place? You say it was more of a writing exercise.
Well, I mean, I'm a writer first. I love the just the whole act of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to do that. I'll overhear things and I'll write it down, and sometimes I'll create a little story around it. And in this particular instance, I just started writing just to, sort of see what would happen with the story. And I actually started with the ending of, I don't want to give the ending in the film away, but I started with the ending and I worked my way back in terms of how I would tell the story. And so it was just me sort of trying to hone my writing skills and just to kind of see if I could get, a script out of this initial idea. So that's what I meant by the writing exercise.
What do you think Rosa Parks would? I mean, I don't want to go to the end either, but what do you think of Rosa Parks or of some of our famous historical figures would think of the bus now? The bus was so significant in during the civil rights movement, and so much protest and triumph came out of that. What do you think they would think of the busing now?
Well, I mean, I think that they would be very proud of the fact that the bus is integrated. But I think that they would probably be a little discouraged in terms of how we act and interact on the bus, because again, a lot of what I was trying to show or tackle in the different things that happened, not all of it, some of it was purely for comedy, because some things happen that are just funny, you know what I mean? Then there are things that happen and you wonder, what were you thinking, or were you thinking, and do you have any sort of concept that of the people around you and how your behavior affects them? And I think that they would be some of the civil rights icons of yesteryear, if you will, for lack of a better word, such as Rosa Parks, might be, again, I think, a little discouraged or disappointed perhaps in sort of the freedoms that sometimes we take for granted and don't necessarily respect. So.
And that sounds interesting.
Barking.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all good.
Okay.
One of the things too, I was thinking, the aspect of you taking the perspective of the bus driver. Everyone, we all catch a bus. We don't really think twice about the bus driver. We just, slide a little smart trip card and then get on the bus. But I'm pretty sure day in, day out, it probably really is annoying to have a job and do all those different personalities and people being very disrespectful. Did you consult with Metro bus drivers for this particular part, or?
Yeah, actually, well, I mean, a big part of it was me observing the drivers and how they interact, and they prefer to be called operators, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Correct. That they're not drivers, they're bus operators, and I respect that. But there's a big difference. So I mean, a lot of it for me, sort of interacting with them and noticing how they sort of interact with the passengers, and often I've seen them sort of try to be nice, but yet it's. It just kind of goes to waste, and their attitudes will change very quickly depending on the attitude, I guess, that they get back from sort of the passengers. And yeah, we did. We actually went out and talked to several DC Metro operators and got some of their stories and just sort of their take on what their day-to-day job was like, and it's a tough job. I mean, it's honest work and it's respectable job, but it can be quite stressful when you think about they really have our lives in their hands. If you're sitting on a bus and someone jumps on with with a gun, I mean, there are shootings on buses and whatnot. So when you think about it, I wouldn't necessarily want to do that job because I've seen what they have to go through and what they have to deal with. So I respect them. And quite honestly, we would not have been able to do the film, except for the fact of the Montgomery County Fleet Services. I went to them and I told them about, one of my associate producers went and asked about it and us using a bus. And then I went with them and told them the story that I was trying to tell and how it was going to be told from the perspective of the bus operator. And I was blessed for that they agreed to let me use one of their buses and, inside a large maintenance facility. And we shot the film using an actual bus for county. So it was beautiful. And, I'm forever grateful for Fleet Services for that.
Yes, well, that was really awesome. It's like when you put something out in the universe, things come together to make it happen. You've been in a lot of film festivals, you get a lot of accolades and awards for this particular film. And this was just an idea. Did you ever think that it would make it this far, or would ever stretch so far out?
No, not really. I really didn't, because, again, I'm not particularly a comedy writer, and I tend to like to deal with subject matter that's a little bit more intense or serious, if you will. And so I kind of struggled with it in general as to do I want to take this, to make this film, and even to a certain degree was wondering or questioning whether or not I was making too much light of what is a serious issue. So when I received such a good response for the film, and so many people liked it, I was actually quite surprised, and happily surprised, and very thankful and grateful for being accepted into film festivals, and a lot of the feedback that I've received. I actually ran into someone who was a bus operator that was introduced to me by a friend, and that friend said, yes, she's this filmmaker. She made this film about this bus. And he said, I saw your film. I work for Montgomery County.
Oh, wow.
And he was so proud and so happy that the story was told from the perspective of the driver or the operator.
Right.
So for that, I feel I'm very humbled, and I'm very appreciative and happy that the film served a purpose, that it gave voice to these people, women and men who have a very serious responsibility.
Yes, especially here in the DC area, between the nut jobs are on the bus, the nut jobs they have to drive around with because people are crazy in their cars. The traffic here is insane, and then the people on the buses are insane. So it's like double duty. You mentioned about you typically don't do comedy. Do you see yourself having a particular genre, or do you see yourself as a particular type of filmmaker?
No, not necessarily. I wouldn't want to say I have a particular genre, because I tend to write more serious stories, but at the same time, I think that everything has some element of some sort of comedic element. So even when I'm writing serious stories and some of the things that I've been working on recently, there are comedic moments, because that's life. There's ups and downs, and there's so if anything, I would say dramedy is what I tend to lean toward, but more serious than not laugh out loud jokes, but sort of funny moments, or if like that. So drama.
So talk about your journey to becoming a filmmaker. Was it something that as a child, like you were like, this is exactly what I want to do? Or is it something that came out over time?
Well, I think that as a child and growing up, and for many, many years, writing has always been a passion of mine. I've always, journaled or wrote little stories, made up little stories, with with the kids in the neighborhood and little plays and that sort of thing. So I've always done that, and I've always been interested in it, and in fact thought about it, pursuing writing, not necessarily screenwriting, but fiction, and I've dabbled in that, and I'm doing a lot more of that type of writing, as we speak, and so. In the course of following sort of my fiction writing and writing dialogue and whatnot, a couple of people who've read my work said, you have a really good way with words and dialogue. Have you ever thought about playwriting or screenwriting? And that was kind of how it all started. And I was like, well, okay, because I tend to write more of the narrative, the dialogue in my stories better than I do the description. How they say show and not tell.
Right, exactly.
Writing, that's really what I've been sort of having to work a lot on, is the visual aspects of screenwriting, not making it so dialogue heavy. But so as far as like sort of morphing into filmmaking, basically I ended up volunteering on these 48-hour film festival project teams that other people were making their films, and I helped on the films. And so, combining the writing with being on a set, and I love the whole, everything that happens on a set, the adrenaline of getting all these pieces come together. That's kind of sort of how it has, it evolved with the 48-hour film festival, where you shoot, you write, shoot, score a film in 2 days, edit it, and turn it in 48 hours. And they tell you what the genre is, and, that sort of thing. So it's like the films aren't very good. And
48 hours. Well, you never know.
Do all that in 48 hours. But what it does teach you is how to work under pressure and complete a project and pull and work with a big team like that puts these films together in 48 hours. So with that and the writing, and then sort of taking more, going and getting more screenwriting training in terms of the mechanics of screenwriting, because screenwriting is very different than short stories and novels and that sort of thing. Yeah. So
there's a science behind it. I took a screenwriting class. There's a science.
It's a science, and it's tough. It's hard work. But I love it. And, now I'm finding that where I get the most joy is writing and producing. And I've worked on some projects recently where I was more in the background in terms of producing, and as well writing and producing, and then letting someone whose strength and training and passion is directing do that part of it. And I think that works very well for me in terms of collaboration.
Talk about finding your subjects. I know for to Rosa, it was more about your experience on the bus, but for other projects you said they're more serious. What are the inspirations typically behind those particular projects?
Well, it just depends on the project. For example, I did a little silent film. It's about a 3-minute film last year, I believe it was. And that particular film, it's called See the Boy. And a friend of mine, a colleague, a collaborator, he composed a 2.5-minute score, a composition called Ethereal, Chad Eric Smith. And he sent me the music and said, hey, listen to this and tell me, write, if you can write a story that inspires you. How does the music inspire you? So what I did was I listened to his composition, Ethereal, and I'm not exactly sure. I guess the music inspired me, as he said. And I wrote this script called See the Boy. And it's, like I said, it's about a 2.5-minute, however long the musical composition is, that's how long the film is. And the story is about the killing of Tamir Rice in Cleveland, Ohio, but it's more about that last day in the park, what his last day on Earth was like. And obviously that's not comedy. That's more serious. But, you know, I take the stories that I tend to write come from real life. I fictionalize them obviously to a large extent, but for the most part, they're based on folks that I have met or I've known about. We're in post-production on a short called Solomon Dasco.
Okay.
That was directed by Yafet Jackman. He's in film school, his second year film. I wrote the Solomon Dasco, and it's based on a character from a feature that I wrote and we're trying to produce called French Onion Soup. But that particular story, Solomon Dasco, is about this recovering heroin abuser who is holding on to his dream to become a famous blues singer, and he's homeless and whatnot. And again, it kind of sounds like a downer. When I say it out loud, it's like, wow.
Well, he's recovering, so that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, he's struggling with his recovery. But that particular character, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I wrote I wrote the feature several years ago before there was all this discussion about heroin abuse in America. Of course, there's always been heroin abuse, but
now it's mainstream.
Yeah, it's much more mainstream. So, but that particular story, I don't know anybody in particular who's a recovering heroin abuser, but I do know a number of people that are holding on to dreams that have been sort of postponed for various reasons. So that short or that story about Solomon Dasco is about just that, dreams postponed for, at the expense, or your dreams being, going at the expense of whatever your crutch or whatever your shortcoming may be. So that little short is really all about. And so, the French Onion Soup, story in and of itself, it deals with heroin abuse, mental illness, and all the various, things that, they're a fact of life.
Right.
But yet we still have dreams that we hold on to that may be suffering from whatever these sort of crutches or facts of life are that, it's life. You deal with them, but how do you deal with them?
Right.
What are you going to do to get beyond them or get past them? So that's what that particular story is about. So, all of my characters are based in some way or some form or fashion in someone or something that has sort of spoke to me.
Do you see people getting lessons out of your work where people walk away from it, sort of say, okay, like you said, the person who's, trying to figure out how to reach their dreams, will there be something that people can take away from that and learn from it and maybe hopefully actually try to reach theirs?
Well, I mean, hopefully, that's my goal with everything that I do. I feel that, my, writing and filmmaking, my sort of mantra is that I want to entertain and enlighten. And I think that that's what my purpose is in terms of writing and in terms of filmmaking. There are a lot of, films that you may go and see that are perfectly entertaining, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, did it really teach me anything, or did it just entertain me? And there's nothing wrong with that. I just would prefer to do, things that I feel anyway that I'm enlightening someone. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just simply, humoring myself or enlightening myself. But nevertheless, that's what my writing and what I want to do. That's what I want to do, and is tell stories that have some type of underlying theme or message or something that could potentially speak to someone in the audience. Everyone's not going to receive it necessarily, what, someone may look at this, Solomon Dasco or Ode to Rosa or See the Boy, not necessarily See the Boy, but may look at some of the things that I've done and said, you know what, that I needed that,
Right.
that helped me. Not everyone's going to say that, and that's fine.
In Ode to Rosa, I know it sounds like it was a official soundtrack for the film, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. How were you able, talk about finding a team as an independent filmmaker, like you mentioned with your new film, you have a film student, a second year film student who's the director, and you writing and producing it. Talk about finding teams and finding the right mix of people who can do the score, who can do the directing, and as an independent, because I'm sure it's a very different process than maybe a big production company.
Well, I think that networking goes a long way. And with respect to the score for Ode to Rosa, years ago, I had a music production company. I was working with some hip hop rapper and a couple of DJs when I lived back in Texas or whatnot. And so I reconstituted some of the tracks from some stuff that we worked on then. The theme for the movie Think of Rosa, the track was from Shadow Skills, Stan Milburn, his album. And Ross Anderson is a local songwriter here in DC. I actually met him through the 48 Hour Film Project. He was a volunteer on one of the same teams that I was volunteering on, and he was in the music. And when I got ready to do my film, I called him and said, hey, I'd like to work with you. Here's the music, the song Think of Rosa. I gave him the track. And I asked him to write the lyrics. I kind of sort of gave him the tagline that I wanted to have, the ad, don't act a fool, respect the ride. And so he wrote the song, and his sister, Evan, sang. Rosa, the title song. And then DJ Chris X, he did a lot of the tracks. Rest in peace. He passed away recently, actually. He did a number of the tracks. And so it's just, the thing about independent filmmaking is that most people are just as passionate as I am when it comes to film. We're all working from the same space in that we're struggling. We're trying to get the funding. We're trying to put together a quality film that people are going to enjoy. So people are more willing to help you and dive in and contribute with the understanding that, hey, we're all crowdfunding. We're all trying to make it. And if one of us makes it, we're all going to make it. So let's all jump in and get this done. And so that's how it went with the soundtrack. And I thought that, considering the way in which I sort of pieced the music together from various sources, I thought it worked. I mean, I was really pleased and happy with the soundtrack, but all of the music was done by friends of mine, really. And that's the way I like to work, quite frankly. I really believe strongly that, collaboration among, colleagues and friends is the best way if you're all on the same page in terms of what the direction and what the vision is. And thankfully, I've been blessed and very fortunate to have a lot of local independent filmmakers who have been willing to sort of buy into my vision as much as I've bought into theirs on their projects.
When you think about the independent film scene in DC, you typically think about filmmaking, you think about LA, or especially for indies, we think about New York, maybe even Atlanta. People don't really think about Washington, D.C. as a space for independent filmmakers. How's it been for you being here in the district in particular? Because I'm also in the D.C. area. Being a filmmaker, do you see it as a space where independent filmmakers can really make a mark here?
I think that that indie filmmakers can definitely make a mark. We're making a mark. I mean, there are a number of very talented filmmakers right here in DC. I think, I mean, like Harold Jackson III and Anthony Green and Tiffany Yancey, all these people are really doing great things. It's just a matter of others recognizing how much we bring to the table and the viability of the films and the projects that we're making. Because I mean, we can make great films all we want to, but the bottom line is, you know, distribution, and that's why, you know, kweliTV is so you know, important. And I'm so thankful to have the opportunity for my film.
Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Because I mean, that's what we all want. It's, you know, people make films, and we put a lot of heart, you know, and sweat and tears into these film projects. And what we want most is for not only for people to see our films, but, you know, to understand the work that we put into it. And, you know, it's not, you know, making a great film is not easy, and it's certainly not cheap. So, you know, we have to be able to find, you know, ways to make our films and keep them at sort of a technical quality level that people would want to see. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of competition everywhere, and even in the DC, Maryland, Virginia film market, there's a lot of competition. So, but I mean, I think that as long as we continue to do what we do, and that is make good film, and I think that eventually we'll get the recognition that we deserve. And like I said, I think that many people are doing, you know, just that. So
it looks like
the work itself.
Looks like we do have a question from Bison for Life. Have there been any spaces where you actually been able to show your film, like maybe at the theater where people actually bought tickets to see it?
Well, other than film festivals, I have not screened at a theater. I mean, short films, well, unless they're packaged together with
others, that's true.
It's sort of, you know, it's very difficult. That's a difficult market, and I guess there are some opportunities for shorts to be played between a feature, you know, before a feature or whatnot. But unfortunately, you know, I haven't had that opportunity. But the film has screened at a number of film festivals, and that was good.
Awesome. If anyone else has any questions, they can write in the chat area if you have any questions for Eulonda before we go. We have a couple more minutes to talk to her. But I know you mentioned some other projects that you're working on. When do you see these projects being finished? I know some things you were talking about.
Well, See the Boy is finished already. It's on YouTube. I released it on YouTube. It was just a very, you know, short, simple little project that myself, Chad, and Naima Powell.
And that's a silent one, correct?
Yeah, that's a silent film. And Solomon Dasco, like I said, we just, or Yafet Jackman was the director, cinematographer, and he wrapped on principal photography earlier this spring. And you know, he's in post-production. It still has to go through. So that's a few months out. I'm also sort of pitching right now a sitcom, actually based on Ode to Rosa. So we'll see how that goes. I feel that has some potential in terms of a recurring sitcom with the same sort of idea that the film itself has. And
so you'll be doing more comedy writing then, right?
I'll leave that up to some, you know, comedy writing, you know, the writer's room or something like that. But yeah, perhaps we shall see. So yeah, I'm working on that and those things. And the French Onion Soup is the feature that Solomon Dasco is based. The character Solomon Dasco comes from that feature. So that's sort of in development, and I'm doing a lot of writing right now. I'm in the sort of the third round of revisions on a novel that I wrote that I'm really excited about.
Awesome.
I'm just right now, I've got a lot of things in the air, various writing projects at various stages of completion and development. But I'm thrilled and excited because as a writer, I don't know if you're a writer, but as a writer, you can go through dry spells where the words are just not coming out. And right now I'm in a really good space mentally that I've been doing a lot of writing, and I'm very happy and looking forward to the future.
Awesome. Yeah, I need to get. I am a writer, so but I have experienced my dry spell right now, actually. But this is a really great conversation. I really enjoyed, talking to you, learning more about your work, and hopefully everyone else got a really great sense of who you are as a filmmaker. I'm really excited to hear more about what you're going to be doing in the future. So Eulonda, it was so awesome talking to you, and you can see her film Ode to Rosa on kweliTV. It is right now we're only $19.99 a year to subscribe to kweliTV. You can only rent for 99 cents while we're in beta. We're hoping to be out of beta in the next 30 days. So thank you so much for this conversation. And if people want to find you outside of the streaming platform, where can they go if they want to look you up or follow you on social media?
Well, right now, the easiest way is to go to my website. It's Eulonda Kay Lea, EULONDA KAYLEA, my full name.com. And you can, check out some of the things that I've been working on, keep up with me, send me an email, follow me on Twitter. I don't have a lot of Twitter followers, so, it'd be great to fill that up a bit. But no, I'm excited about the future, and I'm really proud of you and what you've done with kweliTV. And I just want to pray for your continued success.
Thank you, Lord. I need it. Oh, there's my hand. Where's my hand? Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is really awesome. Thank you so much. And it looks like someone else says we appreciate the conversation. So yeah. So people are watching and they definitely appreciate the conversation. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.